Hello again, everybody. This is Craig Evans of Autism Hangout, and thank you for tuning in to another installment in Beyond the Headlines. Beyond the Headlines, I usually reserve for newsmakers that are out there actually walking the talk, the people that not only have the background and the expertise, but are actually putting their work into a situation where we can all benefit from it. And I usually reserve it for businesses that are making products or authors that are out there on the lecture circuit trying to educate as to their experiences with autism. Well, today I've got the good fortune of having another form of a storyteller. I've got a videographer, a filmmaker. His name is Graham Streeter. Graham runs a company called Imperative Pictures. So Autism Hangout, I'd like you to welcome, please, Graham Streeter. Welcome, Graham.
Thank you, Craig.
I'm delighted to have you here for a number of reasons, but before we get into what some of those reasons might be, I want to first read the mission statement of your company, Imperative Pictures. It says, "We see the value of content that has the potential to offer a deeper sense of compassion and understanding for a healthier, more diverse, and more tolerant society." And being an old hippie myself, I look at something like that, and you are trying to be the change that the world needs. In fact, out there as a truth teller or a storyteller, I would also like to use the term prophet in some regard. So I hope I'm not embarrassing you with these terms.
A lot of pressure there. Prophet, that's the first time for a prophet.
Well, okay, let's talk about prophet, because, you know, that segues right into this whole truth teller business. A lot of people in Hollywood today are not paying much attention to the real truth that they're putting out in their movies. They're basically just offering entertainment. Yet you feel compelled to come out and talk about issues that are imperative, not only to American society, but to the world. Can you talk about that? What was your inspiration to get into this?
Movies are a very, very powerful medium. There's so much that goes into the elements that make up motion picture, with sound and dialogue and context, and of course your editing and music kind of persuading an emotion on top of all that. And of course you have a good story. It's all in the heartstrings, and it can be an experience that can change your life forever. And in many cases, a lot of us have films. You would have a film that you grew up with or saw as a youngster that you just never have forgotten. And that kind of power is really is also carrying a great deal of responsibility. You could have seen a picture that could have sent you in one direction or another direction, So I felt like, I wanted to make movies that I wanted to take this art form and really use it to its best potential. You wanted to walk away a better person. You want to walk away a smarter person, and you don't want to walk away with them holding that story, holding those lessons in their heart forever. If you can, if you can.
What convinced you that autism was one of these stories that needed to be told?
Well, it's interesting because I started the research to write a story. The last story I did dealt with Asian culture and visual impairment. I use visual impairment as an example of an abnormality in culture that a culture would be ashamed of. And I played that the whole card of a culture who's very fixed on ways that you have to be the same, and how someone has to live a life being different. And how that difference of that one person who was visually impaired, who everyone was embarrassed about, was actually the magnet that brought everyone together and really showed that although that person couldn't see, they perhaps saw clearer than anyone else around them. So the strength that lies within the disability. And autism seemed to be a topic that, of course, is growing every year. And when I started doing the research on it, I found that there was very little research that I could get on adults with autism, which led me, to even go further down there and pursue the research of more and more about autism on an adult level, and then how that has affected us in our culture, in the past, and of course what's going to mean for our future.
As you were actually doing the shoot and writing the story, did you discover anything about autism that you thought was really noteworthy, something that you hadn't seen before?
Well, being not a person who's grown up in the autism community, so in the last 5 years, relatively newcomer per se, I would say that my biggest fascination has been the diverse angle in which people are approaching their way of dealing with autism. One side would be very, you could say, pro-autism, embrace, no change, just accept, completely in its rawest form, the beauty and the power and love of acceptance. And the other side, of course, is the let's spend every dollar we have, every effort we have, every last breath of energy stopping, curing, eliminating autism, because they love the people who have it and want them to have a better life.
Back to your story, your parable about the blind person being the one that draws everybody together. The blind person in that society was somebody that would be considered an outlier, somebody in the tail ends of the bell curve. And in current society today, a lot of people with autism are considered those that lie outside of the bounds of what's considered normal. But I think most people agree, certainly the writers and the pundits and the historians, that if it wasn't for the outliers, the society itself would not be as rich or diverse or as culturally intense as it is, because these people, thinking different thoughts, make a greater contribution to the central part of the bell curve. So not to get up on a soapbox here, but there are people that want cures and are looking for causes, and that's fantastic. But for those of us that have kids on the spectrum, even if it can't be cured in their lifetimes, there is an enormous opportunity for them to make a contribution to society.
When I first started going online with the project and sharing people with the title of the project, which is called Normal Folk, I'll tell you right off the bat, I got hammered. Without people understanding what the project was, and they knew it was going to deal with autism, I just got, pummeled with all kinds of really, very, very dramatic statements about how I was, on the wrong side of the fence for this whole thing. And I had to kind of like back up and kind of like explain to people, that first of all, it takes place in Normal, Illinois, the story. So those are normal folk. And the issue of the whole story was that there's nothing's normal, and autism is just it's a journey that someone goes through like anyone else goes through it. And I was being criticized because I wasn't autistic and I didn't know anything about the story and stuff. But I always spun it back to them because I'm a gay man, so a gay man can understand what it's like to have to fit into the mold of society and to live expectations per our culture, and autism is kind of the same things. That was the parallel for me to understand what it was to do this project on a personal level.
Mm-hmm. Well, Graham, this has been great. This is fascinating. How can people find more information out about you and Imperative Pictures?
Well, Imperative Pictures is online at www.imperativepictures.com, simply enough. Mm-hmm. Also, you can go to grahamstreeter.com and learn a little bit more about me. If you go to Imperative Pictures, be sure to go to the present, and you can learn all about Normal Folk and the documentary, which is Return to Autism.
Well, Graham, I thank you again for your commitment to bringing truthful messages like this to the global community. And I hope we get a chance to talk again in the future as you start to address some other issues, be it autism or obesity or spirituality. I wish you well in your journey, your truth-telling journey, and thank you for being part of Autism Hangout today.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Autism Hangout listeners. We'll be back again soon with another Beyond the Headlines.